Hey everyone, it's your girl Amanda Schaefer here, and I have returned once again with another Jelly Side Up review. That's right, I'm gonna be reviewing the next half of the latest installments. And I'll be honest, I never thought I'd be this excited to review them, and you're gonna find out why in a moment. So in the meantime, let's get started. So first we have Dressed for Dinner. And in this one, it's the return of Johnny, the little boy from Song of the South, along with his buzzkill of a mother, Miss Sally. I'm sorry if I keep calling her that, because, seriously, she just... Ugh. I've watched Song of the South 2 times already, and just the way she acts, it's like she doesn't want Johnny to have any fun. I get that she's trying to be a good mother, but she's trying a little too hard. Anyway, Johnny meets Ray, who recently became a Splash resident, and they hit it off pretty good. Especially when Johnny watched him dance. But Miss Sally is all... yeah, once again gets back into her strict ways. Super strict, I should say. And she says to Ray, "I expect you mature, sir." And I was like, oh my god, seriously? Okay, the next day is obstacle course day on Splash Mountain, and a few bad things happen to Ray during it. An arrow gets shot at him, and then something gets thrown at him, and even when he caught it, he fell right into the mud. Both of which were done by Miss Sally. I mean, what is this woman's deal? But then later, Ray receives a note from Jeremy saying that he wants him to come listen to this new song that he's been working on. Patty goes along because she also wants to hear the song. But then they find out they're not on the mountain anymore. Worse yet, they hear the noise coming from a beast that is never shown. If I were to guess, maybe it was a grizzly bear or something like that. And obviously not Brer Bear, because he's not ferocious, he's a sweetie. Anyway. Meanwhile, where Chad and Jeremy are, Jeremy eventually said, "I haven't had a good song idea in weeks." And then the Brers smelled trouble. Uh-oh. Apparently Miss Sally was the one who sent that letter. And Johnny was very upset with his mother, and I don't blame him. So everyone else bands together to find Ray and Patty. And they heard the beast as well. And the sight of that footprint, yikes, it was huge. And the part when Patty tripped into the footprint before everybody else found out Miss Sally sent that note reminded me of a scene in the Rugrats movie where Tommy trips over a footprint, which apparently was made by a wolf, that they see at one point in the film. Alright, getting back on track. I cracked up so hard once they scared away the beast. And why did I crack up? Well, Brer Bear did the biggest, longest fart ever. Just the sound of it cracked me up. Well, obviously farts make the same noise, but you know what I mean. It was still funny. Even when everybody was coughing, I was still laughing, even though they couldn't stand the smell, but it's just... Again, I laughed so hard, I think I had tears in my eyes. I actually saw in a video during a puppy interview that Meg Donnelly, the star of the Disney Channel movie franchise Zombies, actually said that the sounds of farts actually makes her laugh the most. No, really, she did say that. Anyway, after all that, it was time for Johnny to return to Georgia. But, I should point out that Miss Sally apologized for what she did to Ray. It's just like in a stew, when apparently she apologized for the way she acted when she came to the mountain as well. But at that time, she took Chad's double-necked guitar and hit it. She said why, but seriously, she shouldn't have taken it away. Especially without Chad knowing. Alright, getting back to the current installment I'm talking about, Dressed for Dinner. If I were to talk about my favorite part for this one, or share it, okay, unlike the other times that I've done the review not in front of my brother's computer, I didn't have to write them down this time because I actually looked at them before I started making this video. And my favorite part for this one is Johnny watching Ray dance. That was a lot of fun. And I don't blame him. I like watching people dance. Alright, that marks the end of that one. Now it's on to the next installment, Ghoulish Feasts. And before I start talking about it, I just want to add that I've been watching this one every single day since it was uploaded on Halloween. Yep, you heard right, this is a Halloween special. And you're going to find out why I watched it every day in just a moment. Oh, and also I showed this installment to my brother, and even he enjoyed it. More on why in a moment. But first, let's get into talking about the events. Chad and Jeremy gather everybody, and they tell them a scary story about Jeremy's ancestor. And then the next day, they find footprints on the floor. Thinking it might have something to do with the story, they believe that they have been haunted. But Ray keeps saying there's no such thing as ghosts, so he was the only one who didn't believe that they were haunted. Then we cut to the next scene where Patty and Bert are talking, the things a simple story can do. And while they're chatting, a young couple climbs up the mountain. And who was that couple? That couple just so happened to have been Victor Van Dort and Victoria Everglot from one of my favorite movies of Tim Burton, Corpse Bride. And that, my friends, is why I watch this installment every day. As soon as I found out they were going to be in that installment, I was like, ah! Oh my gosh, so exciting! Okay, keep it together. So when Patty and Bert go over and introduce themselves to them, Patty says, I gotta warn you, the Bears have been antsy since Jeremy told them a story about some dead relative of his, Emily. And Victor recognized the name. Which brings us back to what the story Jeremy told was about, and who his ancestor was. He told the story of Emily, and Lord Barkis Bittern, the man that she was going to marry, but he killed her. So when Patty and Bert introduce Victor and Victoria to the others, they notice a bunch of candy wrappers on the ground, and it looks like the word angry is written in blood on a stone. And they also keep hearing a mysterious whistle, which is another thing. And, once again, Ray says there's no such thing as ghosts. But Jeremy said early on, before Victor and Victoria arrived, that Emily never haunted as a ghost. She was a corpse. Of course, those of you who have watched Corpse Bride would know. So when everyone goes to splash down photos to try to get a picture of the guilty party, it looks like they caught Emily in the picture. Uh-oh. But then, everybody bands together to have a corpse wedding, but Victor wasn't sure how the dead can be united. So, Patty and Jeremy stand in for Emily and Barkus, while Chad preaches, which is like what his character Dudley Lester did in Laredo when him and Jeremy appeared in one episode. But it looked like it didn't seem to work, especially when a storm hit. And Brer Bear was missing. But then when they find him, oh, and I should add that blankets were also taken. I meant to say that earlier, but being the super fanatic of Corpse Bride I am, I just couldn't help but keep going. Alright. Keep it together, Amanda. Time to get serious. So they go on searching for Brer Bear upon thinking he was taken by Emily. There he was. He was sleepwalking, and he had the blankets, and he also left all those candy wrappers on the floor. Turns out Emily never showed up. Of course, as we all know, she actually is at peace, and yeah, and as Patty thought early on, Emily must have followed Victor to try to get him back. And I was like, I seriously doubt that's possible. She set him free, and she moved on. And Chad wanted to know why Brer Bear wrote the word angry, but it turns out he actually wrote the word hungry. And Victor pointed out, you forgot the letter U. And Brer Bear admitted, I'm a bad speller. Also, I was asleep. And my H's sometimes look like A's. And that marked the end of Victor and Victoria's honeymoon. Yep, they came to Splash Mountain for their honeymoon, and boy, it was a wild one. And I'm glad they enjoyed themselves. And Victoria said, I'm sure we'd be glad to come back. And when she said that, I was like, I would like for them to come back. Well, I'm not desperate. Like, I may be a huge fan of this movie, but I'm not desperate to see them again. Which brings us to my favorite part of this installment, and I said when Victor and Victoria arrived in the mountain. Oh, and also, you're welcome, by the way, Brer Sam. I'm glad you enjoyed the movie. And you most certainly will see Victor and Victoria appear in future Wattpad stories of mine. Oh, and also, before I move on to the next installment, it's true, if you haven't watched Brer Sam's Corpse Bride movie review, Go check it out. It's on her channel. Like, I watched it almost every single day because it was just so good. And it's true. I was the one who recommended the movie to her in the first place. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know what ghost story this installment would have had if she hadn't watched it in the first place, or if I hadn't recommended it in the first place. But either way, I'm glad Ghoulish Feast is the way it is. Alright, now we come to the latest installment that was uploaded just the day before Thanksgiving, and that's Treehouse Cutesies. At least I think that's how the word is pronounced after Treehouse. If I got it wrong, I'm sorry, but whatever. So, in this one, the bears feel like they need a new hangout spot, so they find this treehouse. But they're once again tormented by the Favor Boys, Jake and Joe, the brothers of Ginny in Song of the South. And I don't blame you guys, as in you bear animals, for being sick of them, because, those fellas were just plain awful. It's bad enough that they tried to drown Ginny's puppy at one point in, excuse me, Song of the South. But they wanted that treehouse, and need I add that they actually tricked the bears into helping them? That was just, awful. So the bears decided to get even with the Favor Boys, but they weren't so easily fooled. And next thing you know, they actually combined wits and did something else to get back at them, saying they actually made up a fake bat thing. And things got worse when the treehouse started to crumble, and even though the Favor Boys were annoying and mean, they definitely didn't deserve to get hurt. And then they showed their gratitude, which is great. Meanwhile, Patty and Bert are getting tired of Chad and Jeremy beating them at every game that they play together. And Ray was playing the role of referee. And when I heard that, I was like, Ray the referee? I like the sound of that. Has a nice ring to it. So Patty and Bert made a bet with Chad and Jeremy when they challenged them to a game of pool, or billiards, as they said. You can call it whatever you want. I call it pool. And the loser has to hang upside down from the monkey bars, dressed as a monkey, for a half hour. While things were well and good for Patty and Bert when they were playing, the pressure got to Patty, and she was afraid of letting Bert down. And Bert's like, you could never let me down. And Ray actually said it was time for him and Bert to have a little chat, which they did. And he even remembered how they were disqualified from the Folks of the Month competition that Judy Garland was the host of in Victory Sprinkles. And I was like, disqualified because they cheated. Everybody in the competition cheated. No cheating allowed. It's never the answer. So anyway, it looked like that Patty and Bert lost the bet right after that game. So they had to wear the monkey suits and hang from the monkey bars for a half hour. And even when their half hour was up, Chad actually said it's been up, and said that he and Jeremy wanted to see how red their faces get. Which brings us to my favorite part, and I just brought it up. I said, I don't know why, but it was fun to watch Patty and Bert hang from the monkey bars, wearing those monkey suits. Because once I saw them, I could not stop laughing. Well, it was just funny to see them in those suits. Well, actually, I wouldn't say that. They actually looked adorable in those suits, but it was just funny to watch. Well, other than that, it was still a good watch, despite the Favor Boys coming back and causing more trouble. Alright, that about wraps up this review, and that's all the time that we have. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.